Hello everyone, I'm Professor Plink. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation.
The faith of an atheist is a hard thing to shake.
Great Caesar's ghost! It's Kirk Cameron! Star of hit 80s sitcom Growing Pains, buddy of Ray Comfort, and confirmed anti-evolution evangelical numbnut.
This is called the crocodile. Can you see this?
God, what a numbnut.
But don't worry, friends. Kirk is not the focal point of today's video. He's just setting up the question that the real narrator of today's video is going to be discussing. Today, we're listening to a guy named Mark Spence. He's the Vice President of Outreach at Living Waters, and if you're unfamiliar, Living Waters is Ray Comfort's online ministry, so that's why he and Kirk Cameron are all buddy-buddy. And he's listed as being the Dean of the Online School of Biblical Evangelism. Now, being a professional in the realm of higher education myself, I take special offense to any organization that teaches biblical evangelism, calling themselves a school or having staff using titles such as deans or educators. It's a bit like when flat earthers try to accost NASA employees on the street and claim that they're journalists just because they're holding a camera phone when they're doing it. Having a camera doesn't make you a journalist. Having a website where you propagandize to a like-minded audience does not make you a school. But I digress. Today, Mark is going to be giving his thoughts on atheism and the atheistic mindset. Because it's always fun when people who are dead set on misunderstanding a certain subset of people claim that they truly know how that group of people think. And certainly they don't need to do something as silly as actually talking to those people to try to understand them. After all, they already know everything they need to know about atheists. And Mark is here to tell you exactly what that is. So take it away, Mark. Let's see what you and Living Waters are getting wrong today.
Did you know that atheists live by faith? Not faith in God, obviously, but they do live by faith. Whether it's their belief that consciousness and existence cease after death, or their belief that nothing somehow magically created everything. Make no mistake, atheists live by faith.
So neither of those things are inherent beliefs of atheism. For the millionth time, not that any of you apologists will listen and actually comprehend this important little tidbit, but the only thing atheism entails is not believing in any god or gods. Atheists can believe in various conceptions of the afterlife. Just so long as they don't believe it's directed or controlled by any kind of god, they are still atheists. There are non-theistic religions, like some practices in Buddhism that don't hold to the existence of any god specifically, but they still believe that life continues after death. Jainism is a faith that doesn't hold to any specific belief in God, but believe the soul continues after death in a cycle of reincarnation. But even those atheists who don't believe in an afterlife, that is just a lack of a belief. You theists really need to stop trying to turn the absence of a belief into a belief in and of itself. It may be my position, if pressed on the matter, that our consciousness ends upon death, but that doesn't mean I have faith in that position. Faith is not synonymous with a conclusion based on the available evidence. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, a conviction of things not seen. It takes faith to say that an invisible, ethereal, immaterial version of yourself will rise out of your body upon your death and go into another plane of existence where it will retain your mind, memories, and personality and remain forever and ever, despite no empirical evidence for that. It does not take faith to say, I don't buy that. And as for the claim that atheists believe nothing created everything, with the sly little animation with the bang indicating that you're referring to the Big Bang.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Another thing being restated for the millionth time, The Big Bang was not the creation of our universe out of nothing. It was the expansion of the current presentation of our universe from an initial state of high density and temperature. This also does not take faith. All of the available cosmological data shows that the Big Bang did occur, and Big Bang cosmology does not posit anywhere that it occurred out of nothing.
Many atheists cling to their faith in science. They claim that science is the only truth and that everything must be tested in a scientific manner. But the problem is that science is not always reliable. Did you know scientists once believed that the world was flat, and that bleeding was the best way to rid the body of disease?
Well, A, practically everyone believed that the Earth was flat once upon a time, including all of the religious people. B, most of the people who still believe that the Earth is flat are highly religious themselves, clinging to passages in the Bible that they claim point to a flat Earth. They focus on passages that talk about the four corners of the Earth, and point to Isaiah 40:20, where it says, "He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in." This points to a flat Earth because, after all, a circle is a two-dimensional object. The Bible didn't say a sphere. Science reflects the best conclusion based on the available evidence. At one time, the best humans could figure was a flat Earth. The minute evidence was found that contradicted that, and in fact proved the globe Earth, was when science changed its position on the matter. But not everyone was on board with the changes in the scientific positions regarding cosmology. Galileo was charged with heresy for claiming that the Earth revolved around the sun instead of the other way around. And who was it that persecuted him and sentenced him to imprisonment for the rest of his life? Oh, that's right. It was the Catholic Church. The Church would not officially admit its error and clear Galileo of heresy until 1992. Yes, you heard that right. The Vatican didn't admit the Church was wrong to accuse Galileo of heresy and admit that the Earth actually revolves around the sun until October 31st, 1992. And, Mark, you want to claim science is an error more than religion? And as for draining blood to ease ailments, that was a combination of having very primitive medical knowledge and technology. So many illnesses were basically untreatable, but there were some conditions where bloodletting could help. In ancient Rome, a bloodletting incision into the veins behind the ears could treat vertigo and headaches, and letting blood flow out through an incision in the temporal arteries, the veins found around the temples, could treat eye conditions. So with such little medical knowledge to go on, they very likely would have figured that what worked for one kind of ailment might work for another. And besides, it's really all they had to offer at the time. And again, no religious figures were claiming otherwise. Hell, half the time, the religious people were claiming that ailments were caused by demonic possession. Good thing that doesn't happen these days, Greg Locke.
Sometimes science is wrong. The word science simply means knowledge, and unfortunately, man's knowledge isn't always correct. When it comes to the knowledge of God, how would a scientist expect to perform a lab test on the one who measures the universe within the span of his hand? How would you measure the immeasurable, contain the uncontainable, or somehow fit your creator into a test tube? It wouldn't happen. God doesn't submit to our tests. It's us who must submit to Him.
It's not a matter of containing the uncontainable or fitting something so vast into a test tube. Science is not based on control. It's not as though if scientists can't totally and completely dominate and direct something, then they throw up their hands and go, well, that's beyond us. Much of science is observation and detection. We can't contain the sun, yet we know an awful lot about it through observation and experimentation. In fact, we've learned a lot about the entire cosmos through observation and detection. And by a simple application of deductive reasoning, if the God you claim exists is able to interact with the physical world in a variety of ways as you claim he can, then those interactions should be observable. If it's observable, then it's testable, meaning it can be explored through science. Look, do you believe there was a burning bush that wasn't consumed in the fire on Mount Sinai? That's observable, Mark. Do you believe that the Red Sea was parted? That is observable, Mark. Do you believe that a human being was spontaneously turned into a pillar of salt for the horrid crime of turning around? That is observable, Mark. And hundreds of other accounts of miraculous events in the Bible that, if any of them were to occur today, with modern tools for examination and experimentation, could be more rigorously investigated for their scientific accuracy? Those were all observable, Mark. And yet, right when we developed the ability to actually study these phenomena so that they would move out of the realm of hearsay and could be counted as empirical evidence, it all of a sudden dried up. God went from flagrantly and regularly displaying awesome power and incontrovertible miracles right in front of the eyes of a myriad of onlookers to suddenly being quiet as a mouse, never to be seen in such displays again. Funny how that worked out, huh? It's almost as if all these things had been fanciful tales propagated by people attempting to spread the faith through the application of such tall tales. But as soon as proof or reproduction of such events were mentioned, you hide behind the claim of divine hiddenness. That God doesn't want to prove himself to us, but that we have to accept his existence without proof. Well, shit, Sally. He sure wasn't divinely hiding when he was murdering the firstborn sons of all of Egypt and throwing frogs from the sky, now was he?
As Christians, it's not our job to convince anyone that God exists. Romans 1:20 says that everyone knows that God exists.
For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse.
So, the tired, old, nonsense claim that everyone really believes God exists, even when they say they don't. Gotta say, I love it when you theists tell me you know what's in my head better than I do. It's not infuriating at all. But, hold on a sec. That bit about it not being your job as a Christian to convince people God exists? Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't your book say in Matthew 28:18, Jesus tells his followers, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you." You are literally commanded by Jesus to convince people that the God you believe in exists and to follow him. And the point is furthered in Peter 3:15, when it says, "Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect." I gotta say, Mark, I don't feel very respected, what with you claiming I'm a liar when I say I don't believe in God, or in claiming that you know my mind better than I do. It's actually quite disrespectful. Do you know that you are flagrantly going against the direct instructions of your holy book? For shame, Mark. For shame.
The atheist is quick to preach, there is no evidence for the existence of God, period. Since an atheist presupposes there is no God, no amount of evidence will pull him away from his blind faith in naturalism.
Wow. The projection is really strong with this one. He's accusing atheists of the exact thing that evangelical Christians, just like the ones exemplified by Living Waters, do all the time. Presuppose their conclusion and then remain blind to anything that would contradict that conclusion. I mean, that is right out of the evangelical Christian playbook. Hell, there's even a branch of Christian apologetics called presuppositionalism. I mean, your buddies over at Answers in Genesis, who Ray Comfort has had a long-standing working relationship with, have even talked openly about being presuppositionalists. And even if it were true that all atheists presuppose naturalism, which it isn't, there are plenty of atheists who are not naturalists, the two things are in no way synonymous, but even if it were, if you're claiming that a stubborn attachment to a presupposed position is a bad thing to have, then why do you have it? What, it's okay for you to do that, but not okay for anyone else?
For example, if I were to have a videotape of God coming down from heaven, the atheist would say it was a special effect.
Be honest, Mark. If I had a video of Allah coming down from heaven holding a copy of the Quran, you would say it's a special effect too.
If I had 1,000 eyewitnesses saying that they saw him, they would say it was mass hysteria.
If I produced 1,000 eyewitnesses who say they saw Krishna preaching the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, you'd say it was mass hysteria. Or at the very least, a false god tricking the people.
If I had Old Testament prophecies fulfilled in the New Testament, they'd say the documents were forged, dated incorrectly, or not real prophecies.
And if I were to show you texts of predictions made by Buddha that have come to pass, or could be argued to have come to pass, you would claim that the documents were forged, dated incorrectly, or not real prophecies.
You see, a skeptic isn't looking for evidence in an open-minded way. Their minds are closed to God and closed to the truth of God's Word.
No, the real point is that evidence needs to hold up to scrutiny. And much like you would scrutinize the aforementioned Muslim, Hindu, or Buddhist evidence, so too must your Christian evidence be scrutinized if we are to live up to a consistent standard for believability. It is massively hypocritical of you that you would hold all the other world religions up to the highest scrutiny, to the point of presupposing their falsity, yet your own religion is accepted as true axiomatically. All atheists do is apply the same rigorous scrutiny that you are employing yourself for every religion except your own, except we're applying it to all religions, including your own. And, by the way, do you have a video of God coming down? No. Do you have thousands of people claiming to have seen God in person? No. Do you have biblical prophecies that you can claim were fulfilled that cannot be explained by more mundane reasoning, such as being included post hoc or being outright falsehoods? No, you don't. You don't have any of that. And as Carl Sagan said, and we should always keep in mind, what counts is not what sounds plausible, not what we would like to believe, not what one or two witnesses claim, but only what is supported by hard evidence, rigorously and skeptically examined. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. You don't have any such extraordinary evidence. And assuming that atheists would dismiss something as mundane as a videotape, which you don't even have that much, does nothing to prove your assertions about the existence of God. The fact that skeptics don't just automatically take your word for it does not indicate that we are stubbornly hard-headed. It indicates that you are doing a bad job at apologetics.
So instead of convincing atheists of that which they already know, our job is to gently point out their foolish thinking and to warn them that they're in terrible danger for breaking God's moral law.
And our job as atheists and skeptics is to, well, honestly, do nothing, because we don't owe you a damn thing. But for those of us with a mind to do so, our job is to continually tell you what is actually in our minds, rather than what you think is in our minds because your holy book told you so. That we actually, sincerely do not believe in God, and that as such, we don't really care if you think we are breaking the moral law of a fictional character. Our job is to tell you,
You're full of shit.
Oh, yeah.
And that brings us to the end of Mark Spence and his little chinwag on behalf of Living Waters Ministries. Of course, we had a total misunderstanding of atheists, their positions, and what is actually in their heads versus what fundamentalist Christians think is in their heads. But there was a surprising amount of projection and an equally surprising lack of self-awareness here. I mean, a certain amount of both of those is common in Christian apologetics, but the whole bit about atheists presupposing their conclusion and stubbornly sticking to it, I mean, it boggles the mind that he couldn't see the hypocrisy in that. That very trait is written all over evangelical Christianity like the work of a dyslexic tattoo artist. As if Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron weren't enough of a clown show to showcase how bad of a representative for Christianity Living Waters is, now we've got another jester to add to the sideshow. So, thanks for that, Mark. If for nothing else, at least you were amusing. And that's going to do it for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when a new video comes out. Until next time, I'm Professor Plink, reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.